introducing, once again, smart meters that improve our billing accuracy, speed up our ability to detect outages, and also it empowers our customers to be able to look at their real-time energy data consumption, data on consumption, and make decisions regarding their personal practices and habits as it relates to their consumption. We're investing in microgrids on St. Thomas, St. Croix, and St. John. Those are being designed to ensure that those communities have power even when the larger centralized power plants go down. We're also investing in battery energy storage, and we're enjoying the fact that the cost of batteries are becoming more affordable. And so those are being added across the territory to stabilize our voltage, store renewable energy, excess renewable energy, and ultimately it reduces our outages. We are making investments in the future. Over $4.5 billion in disaster recovery funding is being implemented, and that supports the territory's energy transformation. It strengthens our power plants, it expands the underground systems, and it enables the renewable energy to be integrated onto our grid. These projects are not just about rebuilding what was lost after the storms. These projects are about redesigning future power in the Virgin Islands. There are great career opportunities, and so today we want to discuss those as well. With every project that we do, we are creating pathways for Virgin Islanders to build careers, clean energy and construction, engineering, technology, you name it. We have careers that span the spectrum from tree trimming, to line work, to grid analytics, renewable energy integration. The energy sector is evolving and it needs innovators, it needs technicians, it needs thinkers, and it needs those folks from right here in our community. WAPA, of course, is committed to training and mentoring and partnering with our local institutions to develop the next generation of energy professionals. We've done so through our engineering scholarship, the Albert C. McFarland Scholarship, our internship programs, our summer employment. We are committed to doing our part in building the workforce. We are the largest energy sector employer in the territory, and so we certainly understand our responsibilities there. So I thank you for joining us in this conversation. We do want to not just speak about where we stand as a utility today, but we are positioning ourselves to be a utility of the future. And the way that ultimately is done is through partnerships with that across sector and involve all of our partners that help us to build the energy infrastructure of the territory, decentralize it as being just a utility-driven energy network, and most importantly, empower our customers to provide their own energy solutions and make themselves personally resilient and build their own reliability and sustainability as well. So I want to thank Chanel and the team for organizing this discussion. I hope that it's fruitful for everyone that's participating and that you gather some useful information that you can apply once this fair is over. Of course, I want to thank all of the presenters that have graciously volunteered to offer presentations today. Thank you very much. Back to you, Chanel.
Thank you, CEO Knight, for sharing the vision and the ongoing work that makes renewable energy a reality in our territory. Now let's hear from our audience. Drop one word in the next poll that best describes what energy independence means to you. Let's see what the community thinks. And again, just as a reminder, depending on how you've joined the virtual energy fair this afternoon, you may see the option to vote as it pops up. So we can create, again, that word cloud. And for others, you may not see that. So next, we're going to start off with our first panel for this afternoon, exploring how renewable energy from sunlight to savings is transforming the way we power our islands. Please welcome our panelists, Belgrave Stedman, Electrical Engineer 4 at the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority. Belgrade is a proud native of St. Croix, attended Eulalie Rivera Elementary School, Arthur A. Richards Junior High School, and St. Croix Central High School before earning his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Tuskegee University in Alabama. Driven by a passion to bring innovation and technological advancement to the Virgin Islands, Belgrade has dedicated more than 20 years to contributing to transformative infrastructure projects across the territory. He remains committed to helping the Virgin Islands achieve greater efficiency and stability in managing ratepayer costs. Joining him as a panelist is Sinead Burke. Sinead Burke is a plant superintendent with nearly 30 years of experience in power generation and utility operations at WAPA. He has led key initiatives such as transitioning the plant to propane, integrating 20-plus megawatts of renewable energy with battery storage, and securing nearly $1 billion in federal funding to modernize the territory's generation fleet. Sinead is passionate about improving efficiency, safety, and reliability in plant operations, with a leadership philosophy rooted in accountability, collaboration, and continuous improvement. He is committed to building a sustainable, resilient energy future for the Virgin Islands. And we are also joined as a panel today, Clinton Hedrington. Clinton Hedrington is president of SINS Energy Consulting Group, LLC, FXB Incorporated, where he leads efforts to help utilities and governments tackle complex energy challenges through engineering, project management, and strategic innovation. A licensed professional engineer with over 30 years in the utility sector, he previously served as COO of Electric Systems at WAPA, where he modernized infrastructure, advanced renewable integration, and improved system reliability. Recognized by the American Public Power Association, also known as APPA, as a rising star in public power, Clinton continues to champion innovation and resilience in the energy industry. This panel will be moderated by our Director of VIWAPA at WAPA, Brian Walden.
Morning, everyone. All right.
Morning.
Thank you, Mr. Stedman, Mr. Burke, and Mr. Hedrington. Appreciate you guys offering up your time to provide your perspective. And obviously, it's nice to have such a deep resource from within the utility and formerly with the utility, but also working on the implementation of renewable energy in the territory, along with the implementation of battery storage. So I think we've got some great resources here to offer some perspective. So to kind of preface this, I'm going to ask an individual question and then provide each of you a little bit of time to respond. If you'd like to kind of take it on a tangent, I think we've afforded a little bit extra time, so we're kind of fortunate in that regard. But we do have a time constraint, which Chanel will be strictly enforcing, I'm certain. So I won't put too much of a lead on that. Anyway, so starting off, again, thank you. And I'd like to start with Mr. Stedman, followed by Mr. Burke, followed by Clinton in summation. And we'll start off with our first question here is, what benefit does renewable energy play for customers? And that is going to be both with solar and those without solar. And,
okay, I'll go ahead and start out with that. I believe that the benefit that renewable energy plays for customers with solar or without solar is that it allows for that overall customer that the overall cost that that customer pays to be reduced. And then there is also the aspect of offering better reliability, and as far as not having to deal with as many outages. WAPA does have the net energy billing program for residential and also commercial customers. And then from the standpoint, you can also have utility grade. What do we call it? Utility grade. It's another word.
In the submetering?
Partnerships.
Oh, partnership.
You can have utility grade partnerships that will allow, some financial backing from the actual partner, which gives a little, ease of burden on the utility on a whole. And that really helps out a lot from a financial perspective.
So by seeing those third-party developers come in and increasing capacity through the use of renewables. So
yes.
Point is well taken. Mr. Burke, what is the benefit what benefit does renewable energy play for customers both with solar and without?
Good afternoon, everyone. Like Mr. Belgrave said, I think he took up a lot of the same answers I guess most of us would have. It directly affects the customer from a financial standpoint, those with and without. Most people don't see that benefit, especially those without. But as somebody said, saying those who have, especially the large customers, we have about 5 megawatts of renewable from customer base. That's different from our partners, VIA Electron and the other companies. But when there's like 5 megawatts would reduce the need for me to start a generator. So it directly affects those consumers, even though they don't have the solar energy product, because now it saves the company from starting a net engine, which burns fuels, and that's a cost that's directly affected to the consumer. It also, from a standpoint of emissions, I mean, that's where we don't have to use as much gas turbine. It reduces the emissions to the territory, but definitely some cost savings, independency. Like we in a zone where we got a lot of weather events. You don't no longer have to be reliable on the company. You have your own capabilities. You can provide power for a long duration of time with and without the authority. So there's a lot of things that are happening, but it's more in line with what Mr. Belgrave said, similar responses.
Excellent, excellent. And I think you point out something that's interesting that's not necessarily common knowledge, which is the reduction in emissions or monitoring and compliance, which contributes to the overall cost of generation from a centralized resource. Mr. Hedrington, what benefit does renewable energy play for customers both with and without solar?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'm going to just add to what Mr. Stedman and Mr. Burke said. With solar, the evolving technology of inverters and inverter-based resources is a benefit not just to the customer but also to the utility, because they also would contribute. We have new technologies as virtual power plants and that would allow them to impact in sending back energy, efficient energy, and also increasing their reliability and their efficiency, and helping with their finances also. So with customers with solar have that benefit of, once we're able to open up the market and be able to have them as virtual power plants, etc., and have bigger impact to customers without solar, with that adding that benefit to the grid, etc. So I think that adding to what Mr. Belgrave and Mr. Burke said, having emerging technologies with these renewable resources is the big benefits. And utility scale solar is the big benefit to the customers without solar, and those technologies with all the new IEEE standards and so forth also help with reliability and efficiency and reduce costs. It's a big thing. So these technologies and the inverter-based solutions have grown and allow more customer influence, and that's a big benefit.
Excellent, excellent. So we're seeing the immediate benefit from these utility scale solar installations and battery installations, and then we're seeing potential development within the customer base size, as well as a little reduction in the capacity needs. So excellent. Thank you all for that. Mr. Stedman, moving on to what is the current state of renewable energy online in the territory, kind of specific to each island potentially?
All right, so on the island of St. Croix, we have the Spanish Town solar farm. That solar farm doesn't necessarily have any battery storage, and it's a 4 megawatt solar farm. Then we also have the Petronella solar farm, which is located on the east side of the island. And that is roughly, it has a potential of about 13 megawatts, but they distribute out up to about 10 megawatts. And then we have the Hogansburg solar farm, and that's about 11 megawatt with battery energy storage of about 20 megawatts, 40 megawatt hour battery storage. The Petronella is a 4 megawatt with 8 megawatt hours of battery energy storage. Over on St. Thomas, we have the Dono Solar Farm, which is about a 4 megawatt solar farm. And then I believe in Harley, we also have about 9 megawatts within the plant with 18 megawatt hours of BESS. And that's it for St. Croix and St. Thomas. We do also have some planned in the future, which would be at the Richmond Power Plant, which would be at 20 megawatt with 40 megawatt hour of BESS. On St. Thomas, we're looking at Bovoni, which would be about a 10 megawatt solar farm with 10 megawatt, 7.4 megawatt hours of BESS. Fortuna, which would be a 25 megawatt solar farm with 25 megawatt, 50 megawatt hour of BESS. And then East End, which would be a 16 megawatt with about 32 megawatt hour of BESS plant.
Excellent, excellent. So now, if I could, Mr. Burke, not to just put up the same kind of fact presentation, but could you relate that as to what our loads are on each island?
That's not a problem. So currently on St. Croix, we do about between maybe 9 o'clock in the morning and 4 o'clock as a gauge in the afternoon. We do anywhere between 18 and 22 megawatts of renewable. That's a large footprint of renewable on the grid. Our grid currently is about, our peak load right now is about 45 megawatts. So almost half of that is done with renewable energy. That will increase slightly, maybe early part of next year or end of this year, to about 26 megawatts when the complete installation of the Hogansburg site is completed. We'll begin, like Mr. Belgrave said, about 12 megawatts from that site, along with the 10 from Petronella and the 4 from Spanish Town, give us roughly about 26 megawatts. In conjunction, we also have the support of the batteries, and that will lend to where we don't have as much outages or swings in the system. Many people might even realize, but over the last few weeks, we've been having some interruptions in the power, and it's been a godsend that we have the renewable energy aspect where we have generation down. And because of renewable energy, we were able to sustain the grid without any loss to the consumers. So they didn't even notice in some instances where we might have challenges in the plant. And because of these resources, we were able to provide constant power to the community. That's
great. That's a great, very practical representation of the benefit, and much appreciated. Mr. Hetherington, I'd say you've got your finger on the pulse of what's going on within the developer, as well as kind of the historical context of solar implementation in the territory. I'm going to kind of switch the question up a little bit. What are you seeing on the private side as far as residential installation capacity growth, as well as what do you see as the potential benefit on the island of, we've heard about St. Croix, but what do you see as the potential benefit on St. Thomas? What's kind of in the offing for the near future for St. Thomas and St. John?
I've seen a big growth in customers wanting to, especially get into the net billing aspect. Lots more, and in conjunction with the energy office, right? So a lot more opportunity for customers, and a lot more people, consumers taking advantage of these opportunities and question more and more. I mean, I'm even seeing more and more people wanting to upgrade panels and add batteries and so forth. So in St. Thomas and St. John, where the space is, the land is not, as greatly available as in St. Croix, we're seeing much more rooftop, but lots more rooftop. And I've seen more commercial consumers also being interested in asking for these systems to be installed at their facilities.
Great. Excellent. So coming back around the horn to you, Mr. Stedman, what do you see as the current challenges as well as opportunities in integrating additional resource or renewable resources?
Well, there are a couple of things that I actually see that are challenges. Definitely from a data standpoint, it gets to be a little difficult at times relative to the data you're trying to get. There are some systems, I guess, that are not registered with the net energy billing program. So when you talk about having to do, feasibility studies and stuff like that, you don't necessarily have an accurate as possible a number for doing those studies. The other thing that I see that, can be a challenge, and I think Mr. Burke and Mr. Henderson could probably elaborate on this a little bit, would be the swings that you get relative to cloud coverage with solar systems, and being able to kind of maneuver those from a utility standpoint. From a funding standpoint, you can, run into some issues there if you're not partnered, with a good private entity that might have the financial backing to assist if you don't have that finance in place. And I think from the challenges standpoint, that's the things that I see from an opportunity standpoint. You definitely do get that a much better reliability, and relative to your overall generation portfolio, that kind of opens up because it gives you more things that you can choose from a utility standpoint for your supplying power to the consumers.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Mr. Burke, you did a great job of showing us the practical benefit application. And obviously this comes with some challenges. So I'm going to kind of throw out the preface of, have we identified how to overcome that primary challenge with the integration of batteries? And what are some other challenges that we may not be considering?
So we have identified the challenges and we're working towards resolving those challenges. And with the challenges comes opportunity, opportunity to diversify our portfolio, because a lot of renewable right now is solely on the solar aspect. And there's other technologies that we could introduce to the system that would be more consistent and avoid some of the issues that we may be facing now. But there are those things that we work towards. When we do have more BESS in place, battery energy systems, it would definitely reduce some of the challenges we see. As Mr. Belgrave said, as far as swing, we're currently working to have some other components added, some ancillary components added to the system that will work with voltage controls and some of the challenges that we've seen in the plant with the swings. Those things are being worked on. But those challenges, like I said, it breeds where we have to develop different strategies in making this better for the consumer and for the utility, and we're working towards that.
Great, excellent, excellent, and I'm also kind of picking up from that, and that these additional things that we can implement, whether it be capacitors or the ability to help through those transient load periods, also help keep that BESS online on the sidelines for use at a more appropriate time. So increasing the
Correct.
Flexibility.
Correct. So like synchronous condensers, that's something we're looking into right now to help with support. So there are things that we're working on. They'll be in not too far in the near future. Hopefully we get these things online within the next 2 to 3 years, along with other technologies, the other programs that's trying to incorporate themselves into the grid. And I guess the challenge is, because of the size of the utility, we might have the deepest penetration in the region for sure, as far as renewable. Like I mentioned, it's 50% to 60% at times of renewable. And that in itself is some challenges, when there's a loss of sun, for example, just to make it understandable, like the sun has a cloud cover, we might not have enough generation online to supplement that cloud cover. So we have to start units. And because of that, sometimes there's glitches in the system, but we'll get it ironed out when we have more BESS online.
Excellent, excellent. Clinton, I'm going to kind of jump ahead because you see no challenges, I'm sure. But I think this definitely relates directly to a lot of what you've been involved with lately, which, I think for any of our viewing or listening audience, you've been intrinsic in a large part of the private development of utility scale solar in the territory. And give me your impression of what does the public-private partnership do in accelerating the shift towards that renewable energy?
Oh, definitely that partnership accelerates it due to the financial, back end, right? So the developer has, due to, lots of tax incentives and other incentives, and has the financial back end to bring these projects online and operate these projects in a safe and efficient manner. So it's the big benefit is that no cost to the utility, no upfront capital costs or investment, and being able to get these projects online with this public-private partnership. I think that's actually the biggest benefit. It helps to get these projects moving really quickly.
Excellent. Speed to implementation.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
That's one of the promises of the renewable energy. As we go through the prudent replacement, et cetera, we know that these generation assets are very much needed within both plants, but you can't just go down to the store and pick one up off a shelf and put it online. But with renewable energy, we can get batteries and solar online within 6 months, a year and a half. And that speed to implementation really benefits the utility and the community at large. So
it also allows the utility to kind of be a partner and do what they're there to do, and they operate the grid, and they will help oversee these projects, the implementation. WAPA has done a great job being involved, especially on the operation side, since these projects has come online. So this partnership has brought fruit to the people of the Virgin Islands for sure.
excellent. Well, thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate every one of your feedback and your experience and your depth of knowledge. And I hope we get to have this conversation again in a year with continued success. Thanks, Chanel.
Thank you, Brian. At this time, we're going to open up questions from the audience. So if you would like, you can go into the Q&A section and type in a question that you may have. And we're going to just give about 1 minute to see if we have any questions. And you can utilize this feature at any time throughout any of our panels. And just as a reminder to folks that depending on how you've joined this afternoon, you may see the feature up top to select Q&A and to type in a question in the Q&A section, and you may not see this feature depending on how you joined. Also to note, if you did join anonymously, unfortunately you are unable, based on the criteria for this particular team, to drop in a question. All right, going once, going twice. All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. Looks like we have no questions as of yet, but we'll be sure to keep an eye on the Q&A section. Thank you so much for your time and for your expertise of over 80 years combined. So let's continue and get some input from our attendees. Go to the poll. What renewable source do you think has the greatest potential for our islands? And the options include wind, solar, hydropower, or biomass energy. Go ahead and vote now. Poll is live. We're going to take a minute to go back to our previous poll to hear some of the things that were shared about what was the one word describing what energy independence means to you. Some of those things included essential as the most used word for energy independence. And then we've got consistency, empowerment, self-reliant energy, power grid, security, resources, resilient, freedom, balance, lower bills, wholeness, complaints from customers. I'm guessing that means addressing complaints from customers, as well as sustainable energy. Thank you so much for submitting those responses in that poll. And currently we are accepting responses to our current poll, which is, what do you see as the greatest potential for our islands when it comes to renewable energy? Moving on to our next panel, sustainability and conservation in the Caribbean. Our next conversation focuses on how we can conserve energy and live more sustainably in our homes and our businesses. Joining us are panelists Reza Mechasemi. Reza Mechasemi is the lead project manager or project director at MCN Build, with 17 years of experience in the construction and management of educational facilities. He has led projects across the U.S. Virgin Islands and Mid-Atlantic region, coordinating third-party involvement and managing all aspects of design, construction, maintenance, cost administration, safety, quality, and environmental compliance. Reza serves as the single point of contact on behalf of DBT, ensuring projects are executed safely, efficiently, and to the highest standards. He holds a Master of Science in Construction Management from Philadelphia University and a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Bethesda University. Also joining us on this panel is Ms. Josette Walker. CPM, COR, GPM, RCA is a subject matter expert in sustainability and public sector innovation. She currently serves as the Assistant Commissioner and Chief Procurement and Sustainability Officer at the Virgin Islands Department of Planning and Natural Resources, DPNR. With over a decade of government leadership, she has advanced initiatives such as the Virgin Islands Energy Roundtable, GVI BUY, Go Fleet, and the Virgin Islands Territorial Park System, as well as multi-million-dollar contracts and property acquisitions. A former Assistant Commissioner at the Department of Property and Procurement and Deputy Director of the Virgin Islands Energy Office, she now leads ESG-driven policies and systems-based strategies for sustainable development through the Comprehensive Land and Water Use Plan. And lastly, joining us on this panel is Juan Guarin, LEED AP BDA plus C, WLO AP CPHC, is a sustainability specialist at Perkins Eastman, specializing in high-performance, inclusive architecture. He leverages expertise in passive design, building science, and indoor environmental quality to deliver sustainable solutions for educational, residential, and commercial projects. Juan has led LEED certified and net zero energy initiatives, including major school projects in the U.S. Virgin Islands and Washington, D.C., creating flexible, student-centered learning environments. He holds a Master of Science in Environmental Building Design from the University of Pennsylvania and a Bachelor of Architecture from Universidad de los Andes. Please join me in welcoming our three panelists to this panel today.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here as well.
All right. Good afternoon, Ms. Walker. Good afternoon. Thank you guys for joining today. And we're going to get started with what's the most impactful steps local institutions and residences can take to reduce energy consumption? Ms. Walker.
From a DPNR perspective, we encourage that each project is approached through systems-based design. So typically that would involve measuring, reducing, right-sizing, controlling, and powering. So this is based on your building's energy load, the total amount of electricity that you would use on a daily basis, your consumption. Reducing, which would entail, incorporating reflective roofs, insulation, and natural shading to lower your indoor temperatures. Right sizing, which would ensure that you have efficient air conditioning, typically a SEER range between 16 to 22. And SEER actually stands for Seasonal Energy Efficient Ratio. The higher the SEER number, the less energy that HVAC system would consume. And then controlling. So this is done using smart thermostats, LED lighting, so that you can automatically manage your consumption. And powering, lastly, being your incorporation of renewable energy, especially solar, from the design stage onward.
Thank you. And you've definitely had quite a bit, as you mentioned, with your role at DPNR. I'd love to hear from Mr. Murr on what you find as the most impactful steps local institutions and residences can take to reduce energy consumption.
For sure. I would like to categorize for institutions and organization and also residents. For institutions, as Ms. Walker mentioned, I think having a good understanding of the energy consumption and benchmarking is very, very important. Currently, there are BAS system or building automation systems that they can be equipped with AMD and all type of features that it can allow for self-metering for the buildings that organizations have. So all the buildings and institutions, they can have a better understanding of which sector of their buildings or their facility has the most consumption. And then it gives you analysis and it helps you to understand how you can do the savings on those sectors. Definitely, it's very important that institutions, if they have any retrofit projects or any rebuild program or anything that they have in their plan, they start using HVAC equipments with the inverter type. the inverter type of HVAC equipment definitely helps with energy consumption. The other thing is currently Virgin Island has a really great program for Energy Star appliances, and that's for residentials. I'm sure there should be some incentives for institutions. I'm not 100% sure, but I assume it should be. And that's something, any motivations, incentives for institutions to start using Energy Star appliances, it helps a lot. Also, there might be some programs that some states in mainland they call it some sort of a off-peak demand reduction programs, which institutions, they coordinate with the energy provider, and they see what are the peak off-peak hours, and they let the major HVAC equipment to operate on those time, so they can cool down the building. And then during the off-peak hours, with bringing the fresh air, you still keep maintaining the temperature, but you do not use your HVAC equipment on full force. So in this case, you're helping with the energy department, energy provider, to off-peak all their demands, so they're not gonna struggle with that. I think for residential side, obviously our expectation can be, reasonable and acceptable level. Obviously, there are some patterns that we can have educational for the residential units. If they unplug some of the devices that they do not use, a lot of times it helps. It's very minimal, but it helps a lot. If any residential units they have planned for renovations, that's very important. Let's see, we can help them with education of using ceiling fans, whereas keeping the AC on all the time. Solar water heater is very, very important. If any residential units are interested to make that investment, obviously LED bulbs and lights, stuff like that, and also Energy Star appliances.
Thank you. So a lot around empowerment, both on the institutional side as well as on the residential side. Now, I'd like to get a little bit more into the building, because a lot of what's been discussed so far is kind of like things that you can set up after you sort of built the office or built the home that you can add on to your structure. So I'm interested, Mr. Guarin, if you can tell us, how can homeowners in the Virgin Islands design or position their homes to take advantage of sunlight while meeting heat and energy use, whether that's construction materials, roof types, etc.?
Absolutely. Thanks, Chanel. And I 100% agree with everything that Ms. Walker and Reza said from an HVAC standpoint and from an energy consumption standpoint. But you bring a really good point, which is design and how should we approach the construction and design of our buildings. As from a design standpoint and as an architect, something that we try to prioritize a lot is passive design. We try to make sure that our designs are as future-proof and resilient as possible from day one. And there's very simple strategies that we can do from a design standpoint that can set our projects and our buildings for success. It starts with something as basic as solar orientation. We can orient our buildings, we can orient our houses for passive solar orientation so that we don't get extreme heats in the morning and extreme heat in the afternoons. Usually from a solar design standpoint, we try to prioritize north and south facades for passive solar design. That's absolutely critical. And that's something that doesn't need to add cost to the design and construction of a project. This is just smart design decisions. Then once you've passively oriented your building, you can start thinking about things like solar shading. If I'm going to prioritize my windows on the south, east, and west and north of the building, I'm going to need to shade those windows from excessive solar heat gains. That's something that we prioritize a lot, particularly in this kind of hot and humid climate. East and west facades are very critical for solar radiation and solar heat gains. We get a lot of heat from east and west facades, so we try to maximize as many windows as possible on south facades and north facades so that we can easily shade those windows, or so that we don't even need shading at all, which is the case for north facades. Something that we try to prioritize a lot is how compact our building is. The more spread out our building is, the more facade that we're going to need, the more envelope area that we're going to need, and therefore the more air conditioning that I'm going to need. We try to make as compact of a building as possible so that we minimize, first of all, the part of the building that is exposed to the outside, but second, so that we minimize the amount of air conditioning and the amount of space that we need to condition. That's absolutely critical. And then we have a very funny quote, which is, the windows, unfortunately, are the weak spots of our houses and our buildings. Obviously, we don't want to have a windowless building, but we got to be very mindful on where we put those windows, because that's where all the heat transfer and all the heat losses are going to happen through our envelope. So identifying the right window to wall ratio, which is the metric that we use whenever we're designing, making sure that we don't have too many windows and making sure that we have the windows in the right location that we need them. It's absolutely critical. We try to set up a window to wall ratio target between 25 to 30%. And we also don't want to have very dark spaces. So we do a lot of analysis during design to make sure that we're getting the right amount of daylight without getting excessive glare from that daylight. And the last thing I want to say from a design standpoint is that we got to think long-term. Sometimes windows, for example, are a good example. Windows are expensive, but we got to make sure that we understand that by having better windows, we're going to reduce the amount of cooling that we're going to have in our buildings. We got to understand that putting a couple of inches of insulation on the walls or on the roof might be an added cost for us as owners of the building, but in the long term is going to save us a lot of money in terms of energy cost for cooling and energy cost for any kind of like mechanical systems inside of the building.
Well, that was definitely a wealth of information. And I think it's something that, or things that people don't consider. Now, I know you touched a soft spot, because as a Caribbean person, I'm like, I love my windows and I love natural light. So I'd love to hear from Ms. Walker. How do you see construction and retrofitting trends sort of evolving in light of conservation priorities, especially, you know, being Caribbean people?
So, in the territory, we typically utilize windows for that natural lighting. But then you also have, sunlights or sunroofs, that would enhance that natural lighting. Choosing low E windows to reduce glare and heat transfer is highly recommended. Additionally, just having, natural patios, balconies, whatever you have, so that it's not, your windows are not taking that direct heat, or your walls are not taking that direct heat during the day. So that's passive shading. So it would result in a cooler building, not only throughout the, but in the evening hours. And definitely, utilizing cross ventilation, as was mentioned before, positioning the building east to west to minimize sun exposure during the hottest hours of the day. And of course, we as Caribbean people are familiar with the trade winds. We're getting closer to that time of the year. So that definitely helps in keeping our homes cooler.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Walker. Mr. Mayor, what building techniques and innovations can make VI homes more resistant to humidity, corrosion, and hurricane force winds without significantly increasing costs? As we're, even just considering that we're coming out of hurricane season, and there's a lot of programs right now that are encouraging first home ownership. There was recently a construction workshop. So a lot of people are interested in, developing on their land, but also, as we mentioned, that sort of generational wealth, so being able to pass it on, which for us, being in a hurricane zone, is something that is very of interest, great interest.
Great question. Actually, as I want to start with an example, as some may know, MCN Build, currently Juan, and myself, with obviously help of DPNR and the rest of the agencies here, we are building Arthur Richards School, which is a FEMA-funded program. And not only we have to meet the resiliency requirement that FEMA has, because one of the buildings in the school actually is going to be a safe room shelter, but also we are building in a level that this is going to have a resiliency for long years for Virgin Island. So there are a few different categories that we can start with. I'm trying to make it short, respect of the time. One item which is very important for, especially considering the conversation we have for energy consumptions, solar and battery integration is very, very important. Currently, we have anticipated that the whole campus is going to be able to be off-grid during the time that WAPA has interruption, which happens in every energy provider. So the campus can be for hours on batteries and the solar panel system that the school has. Obviously, investing for 1 to 3 megawatt battery rack and then solar panels is not something which is going to be very low cost, but as Juan mentioned, these are something that has a lot of long-term benefits when you do the energy analysis and maintenance cost and also operation cost. Corrosion resistance using hot dip galvanized stainless steel, epoxy coated. These are something that it has been locally utilized in the past based on the experience, but that is something that it helps. We have to ensure that we're going to use the materials that they are resistant to the environment, that we have the salt spray that actually the territory they have. This is very important to use it for actual energy gears, transformers, all those type of things. They can be aluminum. A lot of times it's a savings in the mainland that they use aluminum-based fixtures, but you go with the hot dip galvanized stainless steel or the other type of copper, which they don't really have the corrosion. It helps a lot. Hurricane resiliency is very important. As we can see, there is devastation happening in Jamaica right now. What happened to us in 2017-18? It's very important that residential homeowners, when they're doing build, or institutionals that they're going to build, they follow the resiliency category, which helps the buildings to stay resilient. The windows, as Juan mentioned and Miss Walker mentioned, we have low E rated windows that not only helps with the energy performance, but also they are hurricane resilient. In the past, they were expensive because there were few manufacturers building it. But these days, there are a lot of different manufacturers with different certifications. They are building those windows, and they are not as expensive as in the past. That one window not getting broken in the hurricane is going to save a building. So it can be a very good investment. It's also a lot of important thing is very basic steps can help. Like residential builders, they can use radiant barrier in the roof or the wall. It's just the aluminum foil, a roll of aluminum foil. That helps a lot with the energy performance. Obviously, it's probably not the best one, but it helps a lot. It's not expensive. And also it helps with, you have less humidity issue, moisture issue. You're going to end up having less mold issues. And then overall, the more you're going to have issues like that, the resilient the building is going to last for you. These are a few examples that we can keep our buildings resilient and protected for this environment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. What a wealth of information. I do want to open up to the audience. It looks like some of the questions are coming in a little bit late. As I'm seeing, we're having some questions for the first panel. So if anyone has any questions, I am going to invite our panelists. You can just go right in and respond if you'd like into the Q&A section, because I'm not seeing any specific to this particular panel at this time. So thank you so much for joining. And we are going to ask, now that we've learned so much, take a quick pulse on how energy smart does the audience and attending members think they are, especially after learning about building structure and windows and HVAC. Go ahead and put your answers in the poll. How energy smart are you? Thank you again for our panelists. We are going to move on to our next panel. We're turning our attention to innovation, tech talk, smart businesses, and smart choices. And as we turn our attention to innovation, we're focusing on how emerging technologies are creating smarter businesses and smarter choices for our islands. Our panelists for this segment are Eric Saunier. Eric Saunier is the Executive Director of the UVI Research and Technology Park, where he leads efforts to strengthen innovation and economic growth in the Virgin Islands. Before joining the RT Park, he co-founded and led Logix, an enterprise software company, and previously co-founded Local Lift, a Y Combinator-backed small business lending platform. Eric began his career as a strategy and operations consultant with Deloitte and holds degrees from the University of Texas at Austin and Harvard Business School. He resides in St. Croix with his wife, 2 daughters, and son. Welcome. Greg Wanell is a coastal, ocean, and civil engineer, currently the director of Caribbean Green Technology. Before joining UVI, he served as the Nature Conservancy's Director of Urban Program for Florida, leading climate adaptation and green infrastructure initiatives. Previously, as a postdoctoral fellow and research associate with Stanford's Natural Capital Project, he developed tools to help resource-limited communities assess coastal risk and invest in nature-based solutions. Greg began his career at Anchor QEA, designing structures to reduce exposure to hazardous materials. He holds a PhD in civil engineering from Oregon State University, an MS or Master of Sciences in Ocean Engineering from Texas A&M University, and a Master of Sciences in Public Works from the École de Fleurs Publiques in Paris. Excuse my French. And lastly, joining us on this panel is Kyle Fleming. Kyle Fleming is the director of the Virgin Islands Energy Office, where he leads efforts to expand solar, battery storage, and electric vehicle adoption, across the U.S. Virgin Islands. Since 2019, he has launched residential solar and battery programs, developed microgrids for critical infrastructure, and advanced EV access through fleet, electrification, and charging initiatives. As a member of the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority's governing board, he champions grid modernization and distributed energy management. Before entering public service, Fleming earned a master's in energy systems from Northeastern University and served as director of operations for a regional solar developer, overseeing residential and commercial solar plus battery installations throughout the territory. Moderated by, once again, Mr. Brian Walden, the director of VIWAPA at WAPA.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right. So, in this section, I think there was back during the American Reinvestment Recovery Act, there was this mad rush to support solar programs, of which I'm a fan. I believe you all are fans as well. But it was putting the cart before the horse a little bit. And that really what we needed to work on was the energy that wasn't spent, because the energy that's not utilized is some of the most valuable energy that there is. And so kind of with the idea, looking at the concepts of energy efficiency, I'm hoping that we can kind of fast track this round and cover some ground, because we've got an incredible depth of knowledge in front of us right here. So we've got a limited amount of time in order for you to share that. But that's the challenge to you, is to try and really bring this across, because very rarely do we have this level of or this depth of understanding and knowledge in this particular space. So the challenge is going to be, how do you make this exciting so that people understand energy efficiency is where all of this starts? So starting with that, I'm going to start with Mr. Gwinnell. What energy technologies have the greatest potential to transform the energy sector for small island communities?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be here and nice to see everybody, Kyle and Eric and Brian. Um, I think that we had a lot of discussion earlier about the solar and the need for solar and the solar battery. I think that those now are no longer transformative. I think they are, that's what everybody wants to do. I think for me, the next stage is something that I think the Energy Office has started to talk about, and I think you, Brian, also started to talk about, which is the virtual power plant. And more importantly for me, it's at the home level, the ability for people to manage their energy, to have systems that they can control from one place, and for the utility to be able to tap into some of those systems when necessary. I know that some of those systems are being used in Europe already, where utilities can control your thermostat or can control some of your major loads. But I think that with more and more people getting solar in the island, these residential solar really taking off as a resilience options for people, really sort of coordinating the ability for residents to manage their energy and manage their load in a smart manner, and combining that with a strong partnership with the utility, I think is a direction that we want to go.
I've understood it definitely, and what I'm picking up a lot from your explanation there is it's about the measuring, making that energy tangible, so that you can start to manage it. Mr. Saunier, what energy technologies do you think offer the greatest potential?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for inviting me here today. And it's a privilege to be on a panel with you gentlemen. So thank you for that. I probably know the least about energy of the people that's on this panel. And for us, our focus at the RT Park has really been on solar. So I'll stick to that. If anybody is on the island of St. Croix and is able to drive by our headquarters, which is 64 West on the campus of the University of the Virgin Islands here on St. Croix, you might have noticed the construction that we've been doing recently. So we recently put up a 423 kilowatt solar farm behind our building, right? And before the hurricane in 2017, this building had solar. And so it took us a couple of years, but working with really everybody that's on this panel today in partnership with also FEMA and ODR, we were able to get a FEMA mitigation grant and be able to put down a ground mount solar system here at the RT Park. And so we've been focused on solar primarily. I would say, being our partnership with the university, with Greg at Caribbean Green Technology Center, we were able to not only put the solar farm down, but also introduce the teaching array that we've set up with the students at the university. So not only is it, hey, we can benefit from putting solar at the RT Park, but how do we share the knowledge of developing that solar farm, monitoring that solar farm, testing that solar farm, and then being able to manage the energy within our building and teaching students and other people in the community how to manage a building in an efficient way, energy efficient way. And so we want to push as much solar as possible throughout the territory. And we've been working with the gentleman on this screen to do that.
Excellent, excellent. And so the transformative piece is the education and expansion of the workforce and understanding within the community so that, again, they can use that measurement that we just mentioned to affect change. And so I would throw this now to Director Fleming, and I'll be a little bit more specific. If you could reach into the grab bag of whatever it is, what is the most transformative technology, with a say applicability within the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think for the Virgin Islands in particular, because I think I know we kind of framed it looking at island territories, and I think ultimately there's a kind of a network of different resources that I feel like every island down the chain has at their within arm's reach. And I think for us, certainly, while we've explored some other options, I do think that from a renewable standpoint, solar is our most abundant and near-term resource to leverage. But I really think ultimately the way we maximize the value of energy storage coupled to renewable energy is, I think, going to be what transforms the most transformative for the territory, both from a reduction in the cost of the overall product of energy that's produced and distributed, as well as the most reliable and resilient way for that energy to be delivered to the end users. Greg touched on the virtual power plant concept that we've been aggressively developing a pilot project around to start leveraging residential energy storage across the territory in that controlled and dispatchable manner. I think the technology, while it's been deployed, I think pretty aggressively with high penetrations, I think to maybe echo Greg's point earlier, it's the controllability and dispatchability of the technology. So the technology themselves, like I think there's their inherent their physical presence is one thing, but really ultimately what transforms the value proposition to the centralized grid all the way down to the furthest ends of the transmission distribution line is how effectively we manage those distributed energy resources. And I think ultimately the way we manage the network of energy storage, both at the utility scale, commercial, and residential, is what's going to allow for, I think, again, most cost-effective production and deployment of distribution of power, as well as the most resilient delivery of it as well for the territory.
So we truly are living in the battery revolution that makes the solar revolution possible. So yep. Excellent. Mr. Saunier, we've talked about some of these solutions. Now, how do we make these scalable? How do we make this applicable to everyone and everything within the community?
Yeah, very good question. We at the RT Park have recently launched a youth STEM enrichment after school program. And we are currently in every K-8 school in the territory, every public school. So in partnership with the Department of Education. And, we asked ourselves when we set out to do this, what should be covered in the curriculum, right? And so we have everything from robotics to coding to marine biology. So all things that are extremely relevant in this day and age. And one of our core modules that we cover is renewable energy. And so if you think about we're dealing with students across the entire territory, starting in 3rd grade and going up, but we have them not only learning about renewable energy, but also like being very hands-on in what they're building. Because we think, how do you create the next, Kyle or Greg, is you have to spark this sort of interest at a very young age. I have some props that I have here with me. I don't know if everybody can see, but this is one of the, this is a solar car that the students are able to build, right? And so I think it just takes it to another level when you're able to not only read about it in a book, but also like develop and build a kit. So this one is, you can see wind powered, and have the monitor that they can use. So they're actually very hands-on in learning how to use renewable energy, and it powers things that they would play with on a daily basis. And we think if you're learning about that in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade, and you just continue to build on it, then when we talk about access for everyone in the territory, something that we know 5, 10, 15 years from now is going to be extremely important, that we all know how to use and manage. Our goal is to just get the youth involved at a very young age, and that's how we think you spread it throughout the community.
Excellent point. Mr. Grinnell, you've had your hand in the game for a good while now, and I've been fortunate enough to watch the journey as you guys have developed programs to roll them out, and the steps necessary to make them accessible to the broader community. What are you seeing that are still the barriers to implementing these advanced energy solutions?
There are 2 barriers. The instability of the utility, I think, is a problem. Having reliable, affordable, stable, not only power but also internet. There's a lot of telecommunication instability in the territory, and those systems rely a lot on a strong internet connection, which depends also on a strong power connection. You can bypass this power connection if you have solar and battery system, but nevertheless, the stability of the grid does create a problem. The high cost of the utilities, both on the telecommunication side and the power side, also is a barrier. In addition to those infrastructure issues, I think that the instability, I would say, of the business environment can create a problem as well, because what we would need is businesses that can take some risk. I'm excited that Kyle is able to deploy some pilot project, but eventually some of this has to be done by the private sector, and we need to offer a better product to private sector in the territory for them to want to be here, for them to feel comfortable and not have to worry about when I will get my business license, why this inspection is taking so long. That distract them from focusing on what they have to do. The high cost of living, the quality of education can come in, but I think for me, the core issue of stable infrastructure, telecommunication particularly, and a business environment that is welcoming, that facilitates the life of people. You don't have to hire a lawyer to get your stuff done, can really go a long way. So those are for me, the main barriers. I'm excited, the RT Park is doing something, we're doing something, Kyle is doing something on the education side of things. I think we're going to get there. We need to be able to allow people to grow a business.
Okay. And, one of the aspects of this is smart business and smart choices. So how can we utilize this technology? And I'll turning to you, Director Fleming. We're in the age of electrification of everything as well. We're talking about we want to use electricity for everything up to transportation. How do you see the electrification of everything being implemented within the territory, and what can we look at as to increase smart businesses and smart choices?
Yeah, I think one of the key aspects of the push for energy independence and minimizing the dependence on imported fossil fuels, and as we go further down that track, I think the value of electrification is going to become stronger and more apparent. I often make the case on the transportation electrification front, which we were just on the radio earlier today, highlighting for individuals who already have made the investment in solar on their home or their business. It seems to be, it would be the nonsensical or it'd be the most sensible approach to also invest in electrifying your transportation needs, seeing as you could utilize your potential excess renewable energy to recharge your vehicle, as opposed to adding a fuel cost to your operation or to your lifestyle. And I think ultimately, whether it's that growing renewables on the distributed level or even on the utility scale, the more and more we are able to sustainably and renewably produce electricity, I think the push and the adoption of electrification again is going to become more apparent. I think now we struggle because people often view electrification as a higher burden on any aspect of their operation. Is why people will go for a gas stove versus an electric stove, because they figure that, okay, an electric stove is going to drive up the cost of my WAPA bill. And they may not be as tightly connected to the cost of replacing a propane tank every couple of months. Similarly, so on the gas and a dryer versus electric dryer. So I think when we really start to, I think as we start to become more comfortable with the and really feel the benefits of the renewable energy, where we become more dependent on our own locally sourced energy production, that trickle down effect of wanting to ensure we're leveraging that renewable energy as a source of driving all aspects of our lifestyle, I think it's going to be easier for people to become more comfortable. I think right now, I think it is definitely a harder sell. For those who have a choice for gas stove, they're going to go for a gas stove. They'll only get electric if they have to. And I think ultimately, as the reliability of the electric supply, the centralized and distributed electric supply improves, the cost of the centralized and distributed electric supply improves, that transition to electrification is just going to naturally fold into that, because you're going to want to couple those benefits as much as possible. I think we should still be laying the groundwork for that now. And it's a lot of what we do is still try to drive the upfront cost of that electrification choice, whether it be for vehicles or for efficient electric appliances as well, driving that upfront cost down so it's still more palatable. And even in the next few years, as the system level benefits of the renewable transition really starts to take hold, you already brought down the investment costs, and now we're bringing down the operational cost. And so I think it's really, we don't want to wait for the utopian state of again, the centralized and the distributed energy system to then be when people start making the shift. We're trying to get people comfortable making the shift now, knowing that those benefits and that transition is well underway. And so running it in parallel, I think, is a key, and really communicating those benefits, even if people are harder to accept them today. Make sure that there's always a long game that we're playing in terms of the holistic transition, and again, utilizing electrification to take advantage of the locally generated renewable resources that we're starting to maximize, optimize.
Great, thanks for that perspective. I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to put a question up, so we will open it up to some questions. And Mr. Saunier, I'm going to start with you, and this would be a softball question for Kyle, so I'm going to kick it to you to make it more difficult, which is, what type of incentives do you foresee that would encourage a customer to allow the utility control of their energy system?
Would that be the net metering? So
like a virtual power plant is the direct extension of that. Allow me to offer kind of a minimal version of this. 20 years ago in Australia, they allowed the utilities to actually turn off your water heater. That was the only level of control that they had, but they wanted to see if that would work. And the amount of energy consumption, obviously, from an electric water heater is fairly substantial. So it was a very large gain to the utility to have that type of supervisory control remotely to turn off a water heater. Using that example, what type of incentive structure do you think will be necessary within the public in order to allow the utility, or what is needed to develop the trust within the community to allow the utility to operate something like that?
I think it would all point back to financial incentives, right? Are we allowed to participate in that upside or that savings that is being gathered from, in your example, being able to shut off a water heater at certain times of the day or night? And outside of that, I think you'd be hard pressed to find any other reason that someone would give up that type of control.
Okay, thank you for that perspective. I mean, we have the idealized and then we have the reality, right? So Mr. Grinnell, you and I have talked about solar quite a bit. I believe you have taken advantage of solar and made an investment in that as well. What are the biggest hurdles for everyone trying to implement or wanting to implement a renewable energy solution? What's the biggest hurdle to that?
I think that the biggest is cost. The biggest hurdle is cost. It costs a lot of money to do that, and I think that the second hurdle is clear communication and understanding of the technology that you are getting. Solar battery word sounds simple. I find it to be something that requires a lot of attention and understanding. You need so the second hurdle, in addition to cost, is clear explanation and clear dialogue with the community about why this investment in solar is being done. Is it being done for just reducing a bill? Is it being done for having some form of energy security resilience when there's some uncertainty with WAPA? Is it being done because you really want to have energy at night no matter what? Like there's different sort of, and so really sort of communicating those and then matching those various needs that the population has with what the utility can do, I think is something that requires a lot of attention and it's more complicated than we think. Because managing a system, from my perspective, from my experience, as you said, it requires a lot of effort and attention. It's not something that you can just sort of forget like a washing machine. So in terms of time, I'll stop here. But those are for me the biggest hurdle: education, understanding, and cost.
Excellent. Point well taken. I would like to thank everyone today. That's been very informative, very helpful, and an interesting perspective from all of you. I look forward to continuing the discussion, and hopefully we can do this again shortly and talk about some of the benchmarks and some of the successes that each of you have seen in your relevant sectors of the industry. So thanks to everyone. Back to you, Chanel.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Eric, Greg, and Kyle so much for, an informative session. And now we're going to get to our first giveaway. So participate in this quick quiz and you can win a solar camping light with an emergency charger, portable air pump, and a branded umbrella. So we're going to pop that quiz up so that folks can see it and go ahead and the question is, what program lets customers earn WAPA bill credits for sending excess solar energy back to the grid? And the possible answers available: VI Slice program, ECAP, Net Energy Billing Program, NEB, or Solar for All program. So go ahead and put in your answer for an opportunity to win. Keeping in mind that this is the 1 out of 2 prizes that we're going to be giving away today, and it's not an anonymous response. That way we can get in touch with everyone who has won today so that you can pick up your prize. Up next, which is so fitting that we already have some questions in for our workforce panel and careers, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge our panelists for our next panel. Starting off with Rosalie Drago. Rosalie Drago is a proven leader with over 30 years in economic and workforce development. As a VP of External Affairs and Strategic Engagement at Haugland Group, she drives government, community, and workforce initiatives that promote equitable, sustainable growth. Formerly Suffolk County's first female labor commissioner, Rosalie has championed fair workplaces, strong partnerships, and inclusive regional prosperity. Thank you for joining us. Also on this panel will be Sabrina King-Leons. Sabrina King-Leons is a seasoned human resources executive with over 20 years of experience driving organizational transformation in regulated industries. As Director of Human Resources for the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority, she has modernized HR operations, digitizing recruitment and benefits through NeoGov and Ventec, and developed a succession planning framework recognized by Baker Tilly for advancing workforce resiliency. Featured in Public Power magazine for leading one of the utility industry's most adaptive post-COVID telework programs, Sabrina is also a founding member of SHRM Virgin Islands, a small business owner and a proud mom. She holds a Master of Science in Human Resources Management from St. Elizabeth University and a Bachelor of Arts in Behavioral Science from Drew University. Moderating this particular panel is Tracy Wells, Human Resources Business Partner at the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority. And while we get our moderator set up to be spotlighted, I do want to take just a moment to go back to some of our poll results that we've gotten in. So thank you guys so much for participating. All right, so one of the questions asked, how energy smart are you regarding sustainability and conservation? 67% said good, 22% said excellent, 7% said fair, and 4% indicated poor. So hopefully, following our sessions today, we have folks that are a lot more smart about energy and are making great decisions both for our homes, our communities, our businesses, and for our islands. Another question we asked earlier, what renewable source do you think has the greatest potential for our islands? And we had a raving response, 79% indicated solar, and 15% indicated hydropower or water, 6% of biomass, and 0% came in thinking that the greatest potential for our islands is wind. So thank you guys again for participating in these polls, and I'm going to pass this on to Ms. Tracy Wells.
Thank you, Chanel, and good afternoon, everyone. So to support all of the energy initiatives discussed here today, it is very important to have a competent and reliable workforce in place and also career paths for us to retain skilled workers for future projects. So my first question is for Ms. King-Leonce. What do you believe to be the highest in-demand skill sets within the energy sector within the territory?
Thank you for that question, and good afternoon, everyone. I love that question. But really, the true answer is that anything that really touches our energy sector is in high demand. We need everybody, from line workers to electricians, substation techs, individuals that are skilled in safety, protection control, PV installers when you're thinking about how we can support the territory's clean energy push. We're looking for engineers, people that are skilled in power systems. I mean, the list goes on. Cybersecurity, GIS, compliance, project managers that can assist us with running grant-funded capital projects and meeting our reporting requirements. I mean, we have a need for everybody. So if you have an interest, you should be reaching out because there is definitely a space for you.
Thank you. And of course, workforce development is very much tied to an organization's ability to not just hire top talent, but also to retain that talent pool. And so my next question is for Ms. Drago. What are the main barriers to recruitment and retention in local energy careers?
So for us, we are civil infrastructure energy construction. We've worked, as you know, with you to restore power, and we're working on those new bundles, right, for rebuild. And there is not a lot of training in this industry for heavy civil energy, right? These are high voltage. I know Ms. King, you mentioned, right, some of the things we need, line workers, right? And I don't know if we can share the career pathway graphic that I had sent over earlier, but these are just to share with folks here. There's that level, you know, we're a contractor and we work for utilities like WAPA and other agencies. That top row are all the jobs that we need: project managers, engineers, truck drivers, equipment movers, drone operators, right? CAD, project controls, folks to work on our technology, safety manager. That's a great job for us. Those roles are important, and you can get there through entry-level trade. And so it's important. The thing we're missing at the moment is the training for this industry. And what we've been doing is trying to partner with local schools, and we're going to do this more, to take folks with no experience and get that hands-on experience. But the other thing that we need to do as industry is make sure that we're working very closely to develop the curriculum. And the other thing I would say is that we have sent folks off island to Florida for the training. But really what we need if we want resilience and sustainability is to bring training to the island so that there's a consistent pipeline.
Thank you. And speaking about partnerships, we of course live in a small territory and we often have to think outside of the box and be strategic when it comes to talent sourcing. Ms. King-Leons, how is your organization or our organization collaborating with schools, trade programs, or universities to develop a sustainable talent pipeline?
Yeah, I would say the main one that I'd like to talk about today is our Avo C. McFarland Scholarship Program, which is a major resource for us, as you know very well in recruiting. That program we have expanded to be an $80,000 scholarship. It used to be $60,000. We've upped it $20,000 to try to recruit more individuals interested in joining the energy sector. So $80,000 scholarship for going off for your degree. We'll pay for it, and all we ask for is you to come back and do some time working for our organization and bringing us what you've learned up at school. We've also further expanded that program to include payment for master's degrees. So now we're interested in that advanced education. And we're hoping that that's something that will assist us with continuing to sustain the talent pipeline that we've built. The scholarship program has been such a major resource for us. We have senior executives today that came through that scholarship program. It's been a great resource for us. It's been a great way for us to get out into the community and share what opportunities exist at WAPA and where that could take you. And we hope to continue that program on.
Thank you. And my final question is for Ms. Drago. In the HR world, diversity and inclusion is still a hot topic. How do you think we can promote diversity and inclusion in the energy workforce, especially in leadership and technical roles?
This industry, really, you grow to those senior roles, just as Ms. King just said, from starting in the entry level. So our 60% of our workforce is local and the rest comes from mainland. And I think the key is partnership from the beginning, right? To make sure that we're transferring skills from our mainland folks directly to the local community. So working with the Summer Youth Employment Program is going to be key for us to make sure that there's paid youth employment, right? Instead of going to work at as a cashier or something else, making sure that we're helping young people learn about these jobs. And there's plenty of jobs. In the next couple of years, we're looking at a need for 7,000 workers, right? Collectively with some of the projects coming online. So it's interesting. The lack of existing training for this industry is an opportunity for inclusion, because all the companies that are in the territory doing this work for WAPA and other agencies have to transfer the knowledge. So it's a natural avenue in energy for inclusion. And I think that we've already got some good partnerships in place. So we just have to expand it. And actually, the most important thing is to build awareness about these careers. And I thank you for what you're doing here today, because the number one thing we've faced going and speaking in the community is they have no idea that this is a really good industry to be in.
Thank you. And thank you for, of course, sharing the slide on your organization's career path. And of course, Ms. King-Leons on highlighting our scholarship program and of course, giving us insight on the high demand skills needed for the workforce, so what we're doing here today. Thank you, everybody. And Chanel, I am passing it back over to you.
Thank you. Before you guys drop off, we actually do have some questions in the chat for our panelists. One being, if the USVI succeeds in establishing a virtual power plant, how will the role of WAPA shift, and would we see a decrease in WAPA's employment numbers? I guess we'll start, of course, with Sabrina King-Leon.
So you've glitched a little bit for me. I'm having a little bit of internet issues this side, but I heard how will the role of WAPA shift? But I missed the first part of your question.
Yes. If the USVI succeeds in establishing a virtual power plant, how will the role of WAPA shift, and what can we anticipate regarding employment numbers at WAPA?
Yeah, I think as technology advances and we get new technology to essentially integrate into our workforce, the employment sector shifts as well, but in a different way. It doesn't necessarily mean that we will not have a need for employees. We may need them in different roles and capacities, experts in that new technology, experts in that virtual power plant environment. And so I think, what we'll see is maybe the titles, the roles may shift, and the skills and experience needed may shift, but we're still going to be around.
Thank you for that. And I guess, honestly, outside of even just WAPA, for Haugland VI, we can anticipate that, again, as we're shifting away from centralized power, what kind of shifts does Haugland Group anticipate?
We honestly continue to just need to hire individuals and train individuals that can do live electric work, right? Overhead bare cable, underground equipment operators, ground people, underground electricians, truck drivers. I mean, this is regardless of where the power is generated from, and we do this in the mainland as well. We do wind, solar, battery, gas, hydro, whatever the source is, there is a continuous need to maintain and sustain the system. So whether we're installing new or upgrading, we are going to forever need a talent pool. And yes, we use high technology. We use drones and CAD and 3D modeling, and a lot of that is virtual, right? But the majority of the work is still going to be humans in person. So.
Thank you. Brian, would you like to add specifically with by Energize and the initiative and anticipation for the future of WAPA?
Well, I'd like to kind of re-emphasize Ms. Leonce and Ms. Drago's comments. You're going to see the expansion of the industry. You're going to see the need for greater amounts of electricians. It's kind of anomalous in our region, but very few of the electricians are engaged in the solar business. They're engaged in the permitting part, but they're not engaged in the actual solar. Those are independent solar contractors. So we've seen the growth of a solar industry. And as we layer on virtual power plants, where that power is generated and where it's at will become the management purview of the utility. So it'll change our model. We'll be using centralized generation and distributed generation. We'll be managing that and controlling it. Some of it will be automated. So some of the skill level and we need controls technicians. We'll need people who can manage that system, power flow optimization, power flow simulation, so that we can predefine the protocols so that when one situation happens, the system can operate quickly to respond to it without someone going, wait a minute, go pull a switch over there. So I see a flourishing industry. I see a flourishing expansion of the labor market. More in the private sector, the nature of the business within the utility will change. I think Ms. Leonce was spot on with that. And so we're going to see greater needs, and we're going to need to have specialists in these fields and people who are really adept at what that means and how to implement it. But I think really where we're going to see is not only a change in the nature, but an incredible impetus to grow the private sector so that these goods and services are available to everyone.
Thank you, Brian. Because we do have a few questions and we've got some time, which is great, because I definitely would love to get through some of these. One of the questions that we have from the group, how do you address, and so this is going to be for Ms. Walker, how do you address the use of land for renewable projects given the limited land in the region? What goes into deciding when land will be used for these projects as opposed to other efforts? There may be a slight delay.
So Jennifer, the preference is for
Awesome. Go ahead, Ms. Walker. Apologies.
okay, great.
It appears Ms.
Can't
Walker is
hear.
frozen on our end. So we're going to give her just a moment to unfreeze. Another question that was proposed to the group, I'm going to ask for Mr. Fleming, what will the end of federal solar tax benefits have on the industry on the Virgin Islands? Looks like Ms. Walker's unfrozen.
Apologies, my connection dropped like the moment you called on me.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead, Ms. Walker.
All right, so as I was saying, the tendency and the preference is for solar mounted systems to be on rooftops, wherein that is not possible, or if we're talking about other renewable systems, we tend to look and make suggestions based on how the property might be laid out to take advantage of the natural elements that would support that renewable system and utilizing those structures or infrastructure, possibly as parking spaces or shading within the confines of the actual building to kind of utilize it for multiple purposes, or at least a dual purpose.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Director Fleming, are you available? All right, so we have another question that came up that has not been answered as of yet. How are you addressing the weather risk to renewed components? This one can go to either Sinead Burke or Belgrave Stedman.
Good afternoon, Burke here. So when the developers for VI Electron designed and commissioned and constructed the two solar sites, the one at Hagginsburg and the one at Petronella, it was designed with the understanding that we were in a hurricane zone and they must be able to sustain certain wind force. So they are rated, if I'm not mistaken, for 180 miles per hour storm. So they should be able to resist most storms. And that will keep the system alive. We might lose a panel here or there, but how it's constructed was with that in mind. But if you was to use the scenario for Jamaica, I'm not certain if anything could sustain those kind of weather events. There's really for a certain point, and storm has becoming more intensified. So we don't know necessarily if it's going to last forever, but there are some construction measures that are put in place to make sure they last for that duration or through our natural storm history.
Thank you, Sinead. I appreciate that response. So with that, we have one more giveaway as we have answered all the questions in the Q&A that haven't been responded to. Thank you all. Now, this particular giveaway, we're going to be giving away, again, a solar, we're going to be giving away a solar item that also includes a pump It also includes a charging station, and it's very compact. And we're going to throw in your goodie bag, branded umbrella, and some other items from some of our other partners throughout the territory. And so for that prize, the question is, drum roll. In what year was the Petronella Solar Farm interconnected? Options are 2022, 2024, 2026, because it hasn't been interconnected yet, or 2025. So go ahead and be the first to answer this particular question. And congrats to our first winner of the previous question, Sean Rollins, who answered correctly. And the question was, what program exists that allows customers to send back energy onto the grid and receive bill credit? And the answer was the Net Energy Billing Program. So congrats to Sean Rollins. We'll be reaching out to get you your prize. You can always visit us at any of our business offices, but we'll be sure to be in contact. All right, so we see some responses coming in on our current poll on what year was the Petronella Solar Farm interconnected. All right, so thank you guys for the correct response. That is our second giveaway for today's virtual energy fair. And to close out today's event, I'd like to please welcome back Mr. Carl Knight, Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director of the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority, to provide closing remarks.
All right. Thank you very much, Chanel. Great job moderating. And thank you very much to the panelists, to our guests. Thank you to our moderators. I think it's been a wonderful discussion. I am thrilled to have been able to help facilitate the interaction between all the many players in the energy sector here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I know that, again, a lot of the focus centers on the utility and the role that the utility plays, but the energy sector is a lot larger than just the utility. There's a lot of other players that are critical to the success. We have a mission at the utility to provide reliable, affordable, and quality power service, but we know that there's a lot of other players that help to make that possible. And so thank you for your participation. Congratulations to the winners of the giveaway. And we look forward to continuing. This is the start of what we hope is a continued dialogue with the community. The utility really wants to play a role in making sure that our customers are well educated on the energy sector here in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where it is, and of course, where it needs to go and how we're going to get there together. So once again, thank you very much. Please do have a wonderful rest of the day, a wonderful weekend. Happy Halloween. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate